Since 1923, Claretian publication has produced a variety of Catholic periodicals and resources, including the Claretians, La Esperanza, and the Voice of St. Jude. Our most perennial and flagship publication is U.S. Catholic Magazine, one of the leading Catholic periodicals in the United States.
I think U.S. Catholic is different in what we're doing and how we're doing it, whereas we're not strictly devotional, but not anti-devotional. We're not ideologically driven or having a particular segment of Catholicism that we want to make supreme. We're really looking at a balanced picture from the pews, from the ordinary families and the ordinary experience of life. And I think that's unique. I think the content and quality of our writing and the diversity of the staff and topics is engaging and interesting. And I would say, I don't know that every Catholic publication, of which there are many very fine ones, are attempting to address the population that we're attempting to address and in the way we're attempting to address it.
One of my first memories of working here was interviewing a theologian, and as a Catholic with a background in journalism but not in theology, I really liked that there was a concerted effort to bridge the gap between academics and everyday Catholics. It makes working here really fulfilling.
Our editorial mission can best be described by our tagline, Faith in Real Life. The magazine focuses on storytelling, grounding even the densest of theological essays in the lives of everyday Catholics. My hope is that every story we run makes someone think about Catholicism and their spiritual lives a little differently. Whether a personal essay or a reported feature, all of our stories encourage readers to get beyond current splits between traditional and progressive, conservative and liberal, and look at the big tent of Catholicism in a new light. As it was in 1963, our goal continues to be to reach out to both practicing Catholics and those disillusioned by the Church, showing them what the Church can be. To do that, we're meeting people in new ways, not only through print but online, on social media sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, through a vibrant email program, and through multimedia initiatives such as podcasts and our award-winning series of video reflections on the Sunday readings. We continue to adapt and innovate to spread the good news of Catholicism to wherever people are.
The U.S. Catholic, I think the name is indicative. So we're looking at Catholicism as it's being lived and as our faith is growing in the context of the United States in whatever current historical moment we find ourselves in. So it's a place that can reflect not necessarily academia, not necessarily pastoral and professional ministers, but families and ordinary Catholics trying to grow in their faith, grow in their relationship with Christ, and in the context of our church, and how their concerns and their lives are reflected in the pages of the magazine and the contents and the themes, and both the difficult issues, the easy issues, devotional issues that help us grow in our faith, as well as challenging moral issues, controversial issues, but that it's a place where we recognize people of faith are coming together and reflecting upon the things that affect their lives and that are important to them.
I came in on it about 1970 and could see that it was always on the edge at times. Just before I got there, the year before, they had an editorial against Americans being in the Vietnam War, and it was very controversial, and we felt it was the right thing to do. They felt at the time it was the right thing to do, and I agreed with that. And so when I came on board, I was certainly in tune with the magazine, taking a strong stand at that point. So I think the mission is continuing today in a much different way. I had looked at some old magazine, 1970, and while the graphics are a lot different back then, the message is still the same.
U.S. Catholic is different from other Catholic publications in the United States because of the diversity of our staff. We are the only U.S. Catholic publication led by a person of color. With the exception of our editor-in-chief, 100% of our senior staff are women, which is also unheard of in American Catholic media. And we have the youngest staff of any Catholic magazine in the United States. Not to mention the fact that our editors represent a wide range of identities in terms of family structure, gender and sexuality, socioeconomic background, and geographical location. This diversity means that we truly and deeply understand the issues that Catholics around the country are wrestling with. And it has made Pope Francis' synodal way a reality in our staff and in the work that we do. Every day, we come together to share our perspectives and acknowledge our differences, knowing that every time we do so, we continue our mission of building the kingdom of God and spreading the gospel to Catholics around the country.
U.S. Catholic really centers women, LGBTQ people, young people, racial justice, and ecological justice. And a story that I worked on that I think kind of encapsulates this was about a youth ministry between 4 parishes in Evanston, Illinois, that were working toward reparations and racial justice in their community. And it was a bunch of young people involved in LGBTQ justice and really putting their faith into action. And I had a lot of fun reporting on this story. And yeah, just think it really embodies what U.S. Catholic is all about in terms of just really caring about lay Catholics and ordinary Catholics and what they're doing and how they're living out their faith.
A few years before I started working as digital editor at U.S. Catholic, I had a conversation with an acquaintance in the field of religious media. I spoke about the need for greater diversity and inclusivity in Catholic publishing, especially if we were going to address racial justice issues. My acquaintance laughed this off and said, essentially, those are minority demographics. The message I got was that if you are in an already marginalized group among Catholics in the United States, your concerns don't matter. During my time at U.S. Catholic, I have experienced the concept of a synodal church on a practical level. The editorial team's commitment to hearing all voices, especially those who have traditionally been silenced, is reflected in the diverse range of issues we address and the writers we recruit. This practical synodality in the daily work of journalism can't be just checking boxes or using marketing gimmicks. Hearing those whose voices have been drowned out by those in power has to be intentional. We have to ask who isn't being heard and why, and it means sitting and listening. In my work as an editor, I have had amazing opportunities to do that sitting and listening, on topics ranging from reproductive justice to queer theologies to the experiences of immigrants to the creativity of indigenous activists. Every day at work is another chance to be more deeply instructed in the gospel. And this is the gift we are offering our audiences as well.
I think the mission is to celebrate, inform, re-evangelize, and challenge those who have chosen Catholicism in order to become their best selves. Our magazine reflects and addresses and perhaps challenges what everyday Catholics, people in the pews are thinking about and struggling with today, whether it be, anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or women deacons or transitioning students in Catholic high schools. It's something that we're all facing. We're facing that in my high school now, So, but I also think that we provide great opportunities for our audience to express themselves and express their thoughts and their struggles through the regular features that we have in every issue of the magazine, like sounding board, like reader surveys, like You May Be Right, like Glad You Asked. And we provide that kind of forum for all of our subscribers. I think that's what makes us unique. I think my best memories of U.S. Catholic center around the art and the title meetings. I think at these meetings, we had the entire U.S. Catholic staff come together, whether it's me, the editor-in-chief, the managing editor, the art director, the editorial assistant, the secretary, And we, but we brainstorms about the article titles and the artwork for the following issue. These meetings really encapsulate the mission of U.S. Catholics so well, because it's so many voices are invited to the table, and all of the voices are honored and respected. And I think these meetings are really an example of a listening church, and I think that's what U.S. Catholic strives to be.
Before I started working at U.S. Catholic, I used to work in local journalism, and in that space, I often found the sort of implicit assumption was that we needed to be thinking about what's going to be selling papers, what's going to be getting us the most clicks. And so it was really refreshing to come to U.S. Catholic and be in a space where we're putting mission first, ahead of considering profit and things like that. And that's, in no small part due to the support of the Claretians. And that has really enabled us to have the kind of nuanced and complex discussions that we publish all the time. And I think those are the kinds of things that tend to get lost a little bit, tend to fall by the wayside in other forms of media where you're putting profit ahead of mission. And to me, I think if anything, that is the core of the process of what Pope Francis is talking about when it comes to synodality. It's having those multifaceted, thoughtful, sometimes difficult conversations with other people of faith and letting the Spirit do the work in there. And so I would say if that is what synodality is, then I think that U.S. Catholic has been doing it for decades.
I know we have encapsulated our mission when I read letters or comments from our readers. I will never forget the person who commented in a story about how Catholics can talk to small children about sexuality, who said, "I wish someone had talked to me like this when I was little. I would probably have stayed a Catholic had I known that this is what the church could be." Whether in articles about transgender Catholics, whether divorced Catholics can receive communion or get remarried in the church, or how laywomen can take on greater leadership roles in the church, every time someone tells us that they feel seen, I know we're doing our job. As a layperson and a relatively young woman, there have been far too many times where I have felt invisible in our church, despite the title I hold and the role I play as the managing editor of U.S. Catholic. Every time I can ensure that someone else doesn't feel this way, that they see their identity and their perspective reflected in the Catholic Church as a whole, this, to me, is what we are here to do.
Claretian Missionaries, Sons of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, we don't have specified that we do magazines or publications or even media, as much as taking a step back from that and saying, we proclaim the gospel, we respond to people's needs in ways that are urgent, timely, and effective. And so we've experienced a real change in the role of traditional print media. But whatever happens to traditional print media, there's still the message and the mission that we want to continue to put forth for people to experience and to do all of the things that I was saying we want to do as I described the mission. And so, if I'm looking at the future, I'm looking at vehicles for delivering the content for us being the proclamation of the gospel and the growing in faith. So I would look at print media, digital media, podcasts, videos, other kinds of publications, whatever is going to work and respond to people and be accessible to people. And so increasingly, I think thinking about how we get the message out, and we're not limited to doing that in a certain format or a certain way. And I think that's very exciting. I think there's a lot that is happening, and there's a lot of people who are really gifted and creative in those areas who also share the faith perspective. And so, 6 or 10 years from now, I just imagine there's going to be a lot of really exciting things happening through and in and as a part of U.S. Catholic.
Our ministry in Catholic journalism continues to engage the mission of the Church to make God known and unite God's children towards the salvation of the world.